Jesus, draw me ever nearer as I labor through the storm.
To be like you, your holiness I I see the Lord seated All right, everybody. Hey, each one of us here today have a unique opportunity. And I know what you're thinking, because I was once like you. I was skeptical. But if you follow this simple plan, you can reach the end of your life and be rich. And we all want that, don't we? Good. Now, let me tell you about this exciting opportunity. It's called Flock. And it's a rewards-based program, but you don't have to sell anything. And you won't be directly compensated by money, but you will be storing up treasure in heaven. Now, are there any questions so far? Yes, you there.
Maybe I'm the only one who's confused here, but I thought I was coming to a barbecue.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about?
Thanks for asking that, Sarah, and thanks for being here. Flock is an acronym that stands for Funneling Lives Over to Christ's Kingdom. Now, how many of you would say you talk to other people? Everybody, right? How many of you would say you talk to at least 3 people in one day? Here's how it works, Sandy. You talk to 3 people and bring them to church. Do you have 3 friends? Those 3 friends, in turn, talk to 3 more people and bring them to church. These 12 people make up your core flock. Now, once you achieve 12 people in your core flock, you reach the level of Golden Shepherd. Who's ready to sign up right now?
Inviting someone to church doesn't have to feel like a pyramid scheme. Just ask.
I don't know how often they've been called a pyramid scheme, but the church has been referred to several things and has been labeled as a lot of things. But why do we go? Is it because we have to? Is it because we have our spouse or our parents or someone who makes us go? Why do we go to church? And when should we miss versus when should we attend? Why church? And today we're going to take a look at why church, why attend. Church is a place where you are valued, where you're wanted. Church is where you're fulfilling your need, your desire for worship. Church is where we belong. I want to start out with expressing that you are wanted. And you are wanted here. The reason why you're wanted here is because we want as many people to know the Lord that we can possibly reach. And the other reason why you're wanted here is because we want so many people to be involved in our family and in our church family, and we want to constantly be reaching out to others. And another reason is simply because we don't like feeling unwanted. How many of you love to feel unwanted and underappreciated? And chances are, if you are, you're in the very much the minority. But we're going to start in Hebrews to express why church, why attend. In Hebrews 10:19 it says this, "Therefore, brothers, since we have boldness to enter the sanctuary through the blood of Christ." And this idea of feeling wanted. One thing I want to express is the Jewish faith was not a faith of feeling wanted. The tabernacle, this is the way the tabernacle was set up. It was set up that the only place that was deemed the presence of God was in the Holy of Holies. And it was separated by a curtain so that no one could enter in except for the high priest. And the only time the high priest could ever enter into the presence of God was on the Day of Atonement, when he would offer the sacrifice for the nation of Israel's sin. But you understand, when Christ died on the cross, he removed that curtain, and all the believers may now walk in the presence of God at any time. We don't even have to be in church to walk with the presence of God. As I mentioned earlier, the Jewish faith was not a welcoming one. They had so many traditions and rules that no one, including Jesus, could keep them all straight. They were constantly referring to people as sinners while overlooking their own sin. Now, we as Christians, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful not to be guilty of falling into the same trap. We cannot separate ourselves from others based on our church history and based on the traditional views of church. We have to understand that we are here to reach out, not here to gain a badge for church attendance. But a real thing that's facing the churches across the land is the fact that people feel unwanted. And that is a problem today. The life of any church will see people come and they'll see people go. They may attend for a while and then drift away. But how many people leave churches every day because they don't feel a part of the church? They don't feel welcome. They don't feel wanted. Now, why is that? Why would someone entering into our church take a step back and say, I don't feel wanted? Well, it could be because we are comfortable. We go to church Sunday in, Sunday out. We feel comfortable being here. And sometimes when we feel so comfortable, we neglect the people around us. And we fail at reaching people even that are sitting in the pews with us, let alone those outside our church. How focused are we as individuals in making sure that people in our church are feeling welcome? Now understand, this is not one person's job. That is a responsibility that all of us must shoulder. This idea of feeling wanted is something we all want. As I said, I kind of joked a little bit of feeling unwanted and underappreciated. None of us want to feel that way. We all want to be in a place where we feel welcome, where we feel safe, where we feel comfortable. But why do we, personally, why may we feel unwelcome or unwanted? Well, many times the reason why we struggle with this is because we have lack of confidence in ourselves. And when we feel uneasy about who we are, it is easy to feel overlooked or unwanted. When we feel inadequate, it is equally easy to feel unwelcome. Because we have this feeling of worthlessness, this feeling of not being any good to anyone. And it's a struggle that so many people deal with. And the reason why we deal with this and why so many of us feel with this struggle of inadequacy and lack of confidence is because it's one of Satan's greatest tools. And it's an effective tool. How frequently, how often do we as Christians feel inadequate? How often do we feel a lack of confidence in ourselves and who we are? But we have every right to be confident. As Hebrews 10:19 says, we have every right to boldly enter the presence of God. Christ died on the cross for you. He died because he believed that you are worth it. And God has a vision. God has a plan for your life. Jesus didn't die for nothing. He died because he believes in you. He believes in us. And he believes in what we can accomplish together. And there are things that we need to hear. We need to hear that we're wanted. And I want to tell you, you are wanted here. We are blessed to have you here with us, worshiping our church together. Without your gifts, without your talents, without your presence, it's challenging for our church to continue to move forward and having an impact on everyone we come in contact with. You are loved, even when sometimes we don't always show it. We need to be wanted, to be a part of things. We need to allow God to work into our lives and what the impact that he's having. But in order for this to happen, we have to be open to what God is leading us to and be able to share what that is. And if we don't know it, to seek guidance. Bottom line, we all want to feel welcome. We all want to feel like we belong. The best illustration I have, and if it's a poor one, I apologize. But when I go home, I'll open my car door and I'll call out. We have 2 dogs. I'll call out to one of the dogs' name. And they come around the corner, they're usually on the back deck sunning themselves. It's a very busy life a dog leads. And they'll come around wagging their tail and they're so excited that they'll come, want to be pet, loved on. And we have a puppy per se. I say puppy because she's 70-some pounds, so hardly a puppy at this point in time. But she likes to jump and she just gets all kinds of excited. Where we have an older dog, if he comes to you, he's excited. But anyway. But the point to be made, they're excited to see you. They're excited to be wanted. They hear their name, they come running because they feel as if they're wanted. You want their attention, and vice versa, they want your attention. And they're happy about it. That's why their tail is wagging. We all want to feel wanted, don't we? We all want to feel like people want our attention or want to give us their attention. We're all guilty of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's who we are. It's how we're made. We value relationships. We need relationships. We need people in our life who count on us, who want us, who desire us. It's how we're made. It's how we are created. But understand, you don't come to church solely because you want to feel welcomed or wanted. You come to church because you have a desire, a thirst, a need for worship. In Hebrews 10:20-22 says this, by a new and living way he opened for us through the curtain, referring to that curtain at divide, that is his flesh. And since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, our hearts sprinkled clean from the evil conscience, and our bodies washed in pure water. We have to be ready for worship. But how many of us, and I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but how many of us, Sunday in and Sunday out, honestly, if we're being honest with ourselves, are prepared for worship? And how many of us are too focused on what we got going on that week and that day to really be prepared? Let's be honest, we're all guilty of that. Our hearts are meant for worship. Our hearts prepared for worship right before the service allows the Holy Spirit to move in amazing ways. And it's that desire that's being met. And we feel included, we feel wanted, we feel a part of something bigger and better than anything this world has to offer. It doesn't matter where you go. You cannot have the fulfillment of the Holy Spirit. You cannot feel included and welcomed as much as you do when you're a part of the church. So how? How can we be prepared for worship? You may think, okay, that makes sense, Anthony, but how does that work? How does that happen? Well, it happens not by accident, by being thoughtful, and thinking things through. When you prayer time during the week, praying that God prepares you for worship. As you're studying God's Word and as you're learning more and more about Him, it just prepares your heart for worship. And it causes you to want nothing more than to sing praises to His name. That before you come to worship, spend just a few seconds in prayer that God will have an impact in your worship today. We have this unique privilege that we have this ability to take 1 hour out of today, Sunday, to show off everything that's going on in our life. This is our escape. This is our opportunity to take time away, time off from our crazy, busy life to focus solely on God. And what an opportunity it is that we can have such a blessing. So what's the problem? The problem is getting out of the habit. Sometimes our crazy, busy schedules stop us from taking time for worship. We don't mean for it to happen. It just is the world in which we live in. No time is sacred. We're busy trying to keep up with all schedules and kids and grandkids' schedules. And pretty soon we get out of the habit. None of this was more true for me personally than during this summer. During this summer, quite frankly, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was unable to go anywhere with my knee surgery. because couldn't put any weight on it. And just trying to get out of the house and into the car was exhausting in and of itself. So going out and about was impossible. And it was something that I missed. It was something that I quickly discovered, it is easy to get out of the habit. And it's easy to treat Sunday just like another day, another weekend, another day of the week to get things done. And it's so hard to get back into the habit. It's so challenging when we're out of the habit of doing anything, church included. It's so hard to get back into it. But especially it's hard when we don't spend time preparing for worship. How can you thirst? How can you yearn for worship if it's not part of your focus? Our focus becomes so scattered that we don't do anything. We don't get anything out of our service because we're not focused. Understand, this is your time. This is your escape. Whatever you're going to face when you leave here is what you're going to face when you walked into the doors this morning. It's still going to be there, but it's not going to affect right now. Close your eyes. Ignore the distractions around you to the best of your ability. But God has given you an opportunity for worship today because He's provided you an escape. And let's face it, with what Satan throws at us, we need an escape. Not to mention, it feeds our worship. It feeds this thirst that we have. And if we come not half-heartedly and not without improper motives or pretense, but with pure, individual, sincere worship, then God will do amazing things. We can know that our hearts are sincere only by evaluating ourselves and asking ourselves, am I today prepared for worship? Was I prepared for worship? We can go to God without any doubt, knowing that He will hear us and answer us. That's a unique relationship that we can have with God. And that's only possible, again, when we're able to worship Him. And why do we worship? It's because of Christ's sacrifice. And it's because He died on the cross that our hearts and our conscience can be cleansed completely, not partially, not for the meanwhile, not temporary. Our conscience, our clean conscience allows us to enter into God's presence with boldness. And when we are baptized, we gave our life over to God. He cleansed us so that we are free from the certainty of hell and that we can rejoice for the future in heaven. But I'm here to tell you also that there's a lot of people out there who will not accept this and just talk about that. I don't believe. I don't believe in that. I'm not going to hell because I don't believe it. Well, disbelief is not an excuse. It's not a reason. Disbelief is refusing to accept the truth. And it doesn't matter if you believe or not. If you choose to disbelieve, you're going to hell. If you choose to believe, then the certainty of heaven is right there. By just simply saying, I don't believe, is not accomplishing anything. But how many of us have friends, family, and loved ones who have used that excuse? Or just say, not right now. Life is too chaotic. Life is too busy. That I just can't commit to church right now. So my answer to them is, so when are you going to? If it's not now, when will it ever be? And I think that's where we fall short. And why when we're dealing with our friends and family, God's like, oh, yeah, it's okay. They said they'll get there at some point in time. Well, they say that, but it's not going to happen unless somebody takes an active role.
Jesus, draw me